Everyone. Welcome to the Montessori Family Alliance webcast. This is Lorna McGrath. With me today I have Anne-Marie DeSillis. She's back again and has some great ideas for all of you. Yes, part 2. And Anne-Marie, we're so glad to have you back.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. She's got lots of great tips and ideas for those of you that would like to help your children get organized. So here we go.
As you begin to put today's strategies in practice, you'll find that home life becomes less stressful and more fun.
And that's our goal, isn't it, Anne-Marie?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Life is stressful enough, and sometimes I can carry it into the house, and it's not fun to do that.
Right, or if we carry it out of the house.
Exactly.
All right. Let's take a look at what you've got for us.
Well, when I think about kids and getting them better organized, the first thing I do is try and figure out how your child looks, basically. There's 3 basic ways that kids process their information. One would be visual, one is auditory, and then one is kinesthetic. And depending on how your child processes the information, depends a lot on how you're going to set up their environment for them.
Absolutely. So let's look at a little bit more about each one of the learning styles. And I think this is a really important piece, not only for getting organized, but what I have observed over the years in classrooms, in homes, with parents, with me, with my children, is that the way that people learn is also the way that they calm themselves. And that's going to be something that we can talk about later on. But this whole idea of learning styles really influences lots of other behaviors and things that children have. So this is great information for parents. So let's take a look.
Perfect. Majority of kids are actually visual learners. They process information best by seeing information and through reading pictures and visualization. It's most common, like I said. They basically need to see things in order for their brain to take that information in. So a child like this, if you can visually show them what you're trying to express to them, what you're trying to teach them, they're going to be able to better record that information. They think a lot of times in pictures. I'm, for instance, very visual. People will laugh at me because I still have my old-fashioned calendar book type thing that I carry around, and I have to write everything down in order for me to be there when I'm supposed to be there. It's the same for these kids.
Absolutely. You know, this weekend we were thinking about getting a new piece of furniture in our home, and both my husband and I are real visual learners. So what I did was there were 2 different pieces that we were looking at, and they were 2 different sizes. And so what I did was I marked on the wall, which, by the way, is going to get painted, but I marked on the wall the size of each of them so that we could take a look at it
Exactly.
and have a better idea of what it's like. And I just want to point out one other thing, that everybody has all 3 learning styles.
Yes.
But they usually have one that's dominant, and as you said, that's the most common.
Exactly.
They have a subdominant learning style that they use from time to time, but not as much as they value. And then they have the 3rd one as well. So we actually all have all 3 learning styles. It's just that we generally will use one more than the rest of them. So watch for that, and you can hear how your child learns. If you listen to how your child speaks about things, they use, for a visual learner, they're going to use words like, I see, that looks pretty, they use words that have to do with being able to see things. The auditory learner is going to use words in their language that have to do with hearing things. And the kinesthetic learner is going to use words that have to do with how they feel about things. So keep that in mind, too, as you're trying to figure out what learning style your child has. So let's see about this information that you've given about that visual learning.
It's pretty amazing. If you have a visual learner, predominant visual learner, and you tell them to go into their room, into the 3rd drawer down, and their socks will be on the left-hand side, they'll never get them. If you have a system set up that could possibly be color-coded, and you say go into the purple box, Instantaneously, their brain is going to know exactly where they need to go. So this helps to be able to eliminate distractions that they might have, and you won't get as frustrated with them because you're giving them very concrete rules and directions. Mm-hmm. They love step-by-step directions. A lot of times visual learners have to have things written down sometimes and visually see it, or it won't get done the way that you're hoping for it to get done. And it also eliminates a lot of anxieties and fears in kids if they are instructed in a way that they understand what you expect from them and what you're hoping to be able to accomplish.
So these are kids that would love a list. Once they get to be able to either read or if you've got a picture list. But they like to have something right there in front of them that they can see.
Yes, and it helps build their confidence because a lot of times we'll do a lot of checklists with these kids where they can actually mark it off or they can visually see that they're accomplishing things.
Sure.
And you'll notice that you can hand your child a checklist for something that you'd like them to be able to accomplish, and they'll go and do it. And they won't need to come and ask you 100 times, how do I do this, how do I do this, how do I do this? Because it's there written down for them, or there's a visual picture as to how to do it.
So they can refer to it.
Exactly.
All right. Let's look at the auditory learner.
They learn best by hearing and or speaking. Second most common. And we're laughing because they can easily be distracted by background noises as we hear a soccer ball kicking into the wall. This type of child, they do best with reading and studying out loud because it helps them to process the information. Mm-hmm. This is the child or the adult that needs to hear it in order to be able to process it. So sometimes if you think your child is goofing off with another child, if they're actually discussing something, they could be learning. And to an outsider that doesn't realize that they might be auditory learners, it might look like they're not actually doing anything. But they're bouncing ideas off of each other in order to be able to retain the information.
This is the kind of person that we say they're thinking out loud
all the time.
All the time. They talk a lot. They talk a lot. They sing a lot. They often will be people who are good musically because that auditory sense is so prominent with them.
And I always laugh because there's a lot of songs when you're trying to get children to retain information. There's a lot of songs that they can use to be able to learn what they need to learn. There's the president song where some of these kids will actually know all of the presidents in order because it's tied to a musical theme. And so that's a very, very positive, good way to teach them how to learn.
So if we are really astute parents, then we can have a repertoire of songs that we can sing.
Yep.
Or if we're really good, we can make them up as we go.
We can make them up as we go. And you all think of the song, the cleanup song.
Right.
That is very, very important for the auditory learner because they're the first ones that know every word to that song, and that validates them.
Mm-hmm. So, and in Montessori classrooms, there's a lot of singing of songs going on to prepare children for different things that are going to be happening, or different things that we would like for them to do.
Yes.
At the group time in Montessori, it was a time when you have to get yourself ready to be part of a group, and we sing a song about that. And you're ready on the line. Fold your hands.
Yes.
Cross your legs.
That's exactly right. And that's how they retain information. So sometimes those kids, sometimes they shut their ears off because they don't want to listen to what you're saying, but most of the time that's how you need to get the information to them.
Sure. So a couple of ideas that you have on the screen there, have you covered those?
They definitely need a quiet place to work. Because they pick up so much with sound, they're very, very easily distracted. If a truck is going outside by the house, they might be the first one up to go and take a look at it. So earplugs, headphones, those are all things that can kind of soothe those kids a little bit. And like I said, reading and studying out loud helps them to process information. If you have a child that has to do a book report and they are struggling with it, Well, you might need to sit down and read the book out loud with them and discuss it out loud, because it would help them to be able to put their thoughts in.
Yeah, good idea. Let's take a look at the tactile or kinesthetic one.
This child or adult processes information most effectively with movement. It's the least common learning style. These are the people that like to take things apart and actually have a hands-on experience and put them back together, so they learn the process of what's inside something, what's outside something, all of that. It's funny because these are the kids that actually need to put their hands into the ground and feel the dirt to be able to understand why the plant is growing the way that the plant is growing. And a lot of it's also through movement. And so sometimes you'll have kids that are constantly moving while they're trying to learn, and we will sometimes jump to the conclusion and get angry or annoyed with them. In fact, that's actually part of their learning process. They have to move in order to retain the information. So you will have a child that might be fidgeting or bouncing, but their brain needs that movement in order for them to be able to move.
I know sometimes at school we'll have like a big ball that a child can sit on, and they kind of bounce while they're working. That's certainly something someone could have at home as well.
Yes.
And if you notice the way Anne-Marie has just described this child, a Montessori classroom is often the very best classroom this kind of learner can be in, because there is a lot of movement.
Yes.
There is a lot of hands-on activities. So you can see how this child might have a difficult time in conventional school, and because it's mostly geared toward the visual and auditory sense, the lecturing, words up on the whiteboard in the room, the teacher giving the information orally, and that child that just needs to move is often asked to sit still for long periods of time, and asked to listen and see rather than to move and participate. It becomes very hard for them. And so, Montessori school tends to be really good for these kinds of kids. And at home, you can really, if you know this is your child's way of learning, you can really think about how can I allow him or her to move as we are doing things. So
it's funny with this type of learner. I think it was last year, a teacher was taking the teachers here at Media was taking some of the students outside and go build something. And she says, don't tell them that they're actually learning their math drill. And what they were doing is they were talking about angles and why the angles, what type of degree, or the different levels and all this stuff, how building was basically associated with math. And I found that to be interesting because that's exactly what they need to do in order to.
So I think we've talked about that kinesthetic learners. Now we know the learning styles on the read. And I think what we do next is we're going to be talking about some of the kinds of things that people can do in the morning, to prevent some of this morning chaos that can sometimes happen.
It happens almost every day. There's a lot of chaos going on in the mornings. Just we're all rushing to get where we need to go. Supposed to be there. And I've just found some tips for myself just to be able to sort of calm that chaos. And it makes a big difference in my household. Usually I try and get up sometimes 10 minutes early or earlier to get it going. And I did notice a big difference with that. I try and get everything ready the previous evening.
And also, do you have your child help you kind of get things ready too? Like maybe picking out their clothes for the next day or something like that, so that it's not just mom or dad, getting everything ready. But we're bringing the children into that process as well, so that they can then learn that skill.
Yes, and the one thing that I think is just imperative is, at first it's hard when a child learns a new skill. It causes a lot more drama. It causes a lot more insanity. But they do learn it. Mm-hmm. And once they learn it, then they don't need your help anymore. So you can sort of put that on the back burner. And I have a couple of things in the next slides just to show what I do with clothing to take care of the issue ahead of time so we don't even have to have a discussion on that day to day. There's some little tricks of the trade that I've noticed. It's very important to stick to a routine.
Absolutely.
And if you say that you're going to be leaving the house at 8 in the morning, really do your best to leave the house at 8 in the morning. Once again, I do a lot of things for my daughter in particular. I use a lot of pictures, a lot of photos to spell out the different steps. Let's say she's going to brush her teeth. And I do have a bucket that has, this is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do third. Because we sort of take it for granted that our kids know what is expected or how the typical person does something. And if you're not careful, you'll end up with toothpaste all over the mirror because they thought it'd be fun to brush the mirror. But if you keep them in order and if you give them sort of the rules to follow, you'd be amazed at how quickly and how easily your life can actually become.
That kind of, the stick to a routine also goes with this very last bullet that you have there, which is keep your weekend and vacation routines the same. I think those two things are really important, and especially weekend, because sometimes during the week we have one routine, and on the weekends, whoa, somehow it just all goes away, or becomes something different. Now, vacations, yes, it would be great if you could keep your routines during vacation. That's a little more tricky, but it is certainly a goal that we should keep in mind because it helps these kids a lot. So let's go to the next bullet after stick to a routine.
So we use a lot of pictures, photos to spell out each step. And once again, this just helps the child organize and figure out basically what's expected. And by doing this, it's a lot of upfront work, but then you don't have to do the work every single day because the child will have their information and they can follow it. And once they follow it so many times, then they don't need it anymore. And you might have to move on to something different. But at least then they've learned and they know how to do it.
Sure.
We also narrate the routine.
And that would be for those auditory learners.
We sit there and we do a lot of that. Yeah. And sometimes we'll even do a practice run.
Yes. Sure.
Just to see if we're both on the same page. And that way, if they have any questions, pick your battles. Pick your battles. Be smart with that one. I've realized that it doesn't work to go head to head with
on every little thing.
There's no point. Yeah. You're going to stress yourself out. You're going to stress the child out. It just elevates the situation. Just do your best.
Yeah.
And
I like the idea of do it yourself breakfast.
I love this idea.
That's a good idea.
There was 2 different thoughts that I've realized with breakfast. Breakfast can be an absolute
nightmare.
So depending on your child, a lot of the things I do is put things together ahead of time that my daughter can go and just grab out of the refrigerator, grab out of the pantry, and she can basically do it herself.
Right.
We're learning how to, cook her own oatmeal, that type of thing. There's some kids that you ask them, what would you like for breakfast? And it becomes an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
I found a solution for that.
Okay.
And this was kind of funny. I had to do this with my daughter for a while. It takes a little bit of planning. I would actually create a menu. And at night, it was basically the type that they would have in the hospital, that you would go through and circle what you wanted for breakfast the next day. And as the parent, you just had to make sure that everything that you had on that list was actually in the house.
Yeah.
The child the night before would go through and pick out exactly the items they wanted. In the morning, that list was to be on the counter, and those items would be there for that child. There was no deviating.
Yeah.
So whatever the child picked the night before, that's what they were getting the next morning for breakfast. But I can tell you we didn't have to have discussions.
Yeah. I imagine when you first started, sometimes there might be a little bit of, well, but I changed my mind.
Yep.
But I think if you try to just stick with it and say, well, this was what was on the menu, and you chose this, and so, maybe next time you'll think a little more about it, but that's what we've got today.
That's what we've got today.
Yeah.
And actually, it took about 3 days when we learned the system.
Yeah.
And it saved me tremendous amount of time.
Sure. See, pace your children's routines.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, Amy?
If you have got a child that takes 20 minutes to brush their teeth because they're brushing the mirror, which does happen a lot, you need to take that into consideration. And sometimes kids need a longer time to be able to just get themselves up. They need a longer time to be able to get themselves dressed because it's just them trying to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So take all that into consideration. Don't expect your child to get dressed within 4 minutes because you can.
Right.
If it takes them 4 minutes each sock, then think about that.
Right.
And put that into your schedule as well.
Mm-hmm. And I know some children too, and this is almost the opposite of what you were just saying, but it really occurred to me when I read that book, is some children, time is such an abstract thing.
Yes.
You know, and so for some children it's like, I don't know, 10 minutes has gone by, what do I know?
Exactly.
So sometimes it's the opposite. You actually do need to put like a kitchen timer in the bathroom so that when they are brushing their teeth, they know when that bell rings or it's ticking away that they better keep on pace with that. So,
and I love that because it keeps them on task.
Yeah. And it helps them to understand what's 5 minutes, what's 10 minutes, what's everything.
And you can turn it into a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've always had more luck with turning it into a game rather than saying, okay, we have to do this morning.
Right. Right. And then this one is encourage, encourage, encourage.
Yes, just be very positive. The one thing that I've learned is the more positive I am, I'm going to have a happier child. So the minute that I take my tone and pick out the weaknesses or pick out what they're not doing the way that I want them to do it, is the minute that we have problems and then we get to school.
Sure. Makes sense. Well, let's see what else you have for us today.
I am a huge proponent of checklists for kids just because I think that they're fun. And I think that kids have a great time with them. There's different types of checklists. I actually went through my daughter's entire first grade year with making the checklists with the little clocks on it.
Yeah,
and every morning she'd have a checklist at home, and she'd have a checklist in the car where she would go through and figure out exactly what was going to be coming for that day. And that helped alleviate a lot of transitional issues as well. Because when they know what's expected and they know when things are going to be carried out, they tend to have less anxiety with that.
Sure.
So these
I love the examples. There are a lot of really good examples here. Some with just words for the older child that can read and check boxes, and some with pictures. It's great.
And you can even start this with whatever age you feel comfortable. I was doing this with my daughter when she was 2.5.
Sure.
I would even take Velcro and take pictures with little Velcro sticky things, and they would be all over the house. But she thought it was glass, and she would try and figure out how many Velcro things she could get in the morning by doing different jobs. And it worked out well.
Okay, let's look at some organizational tools.
The one thing I've learned is everything should be labeled with simple pictures, words, both. That happens to be my daughter's drawers. On Sunday, we go through and we lay out all of her clothes for the entire week.
The one with the days of the weeks on it?
The one with the days of the week. And luckily, she wears a uniform, so we can go through and make sure that everything is in there, including the socks. This way, there's no questions in the morning. You go, you figure out what day it is, you pull it out, you get dressed.
Yeah.
And she is the one that sits there and helps me put it together.
Yes.
On the weekend.
Sure. I see your toothbrushing display there. That's a great little idea.
They don't get distracted this way because it's all right there in front of them.
Sure.
And like I said, it takes some time to get it set up. Once it's set up, they can pretty much be on. And sometimes you'll have to even do a smaller sheet for brushing your teeth. And you just work little bits at a time. And like my daughter came to me the other day and she says, I don't think we need to lay out my clothes this way anymore. I think we can figure something else out because I've got that now. That's right. So I said, okay, let's move on
to something else.
Yeah. Reduce clutter. Reduce a lot of clutter, because if it doesn't, with one motto now, if it doesn't serve a purpose, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's just in the way. We end up getting so much stuff for our children, and then we don't know how to clean it up, and then we don't know how they should clean it up. And to be honest with you, they would rather just be with you doing things than sitting in their room all the time with different chores. Yes.
Okay. Oh, chores?
Chores. This is, my daughter actually told me she was ready to do chores when she was young, because it was fun for her.
Mm-hmm.
You can do, again, different things, different ways of encouraging them to do their chores. You just want to make sure that it's sort of specific to their age group, to their level, what they're able to do. And when they first start, you want to set them up for a positive experience.
Mm-hmm.
So don't have them doing something that's really unrealistic for them to do.
Or too many things.
Too many things. Be very, very slow in what you do, and just let them start. And they will start to build confidence, and when they're ready for more, they usually tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The one thing I think is so neat is you can take cookie sheets and little magnets.
Yep.
And this way you sort of work with all of the visual, you work with all of the different learning styles.
Yeah.
And children love to be able to either cross things off, move things,
right,
or visually see that they've completed what they've been asked to do.
Yeah.
So this is just an idea that you can stick up on the wall. You could even have them carry around the cookie sheet. I've done that before. And they think it's terrific.
Great stuff. Mm-hmm. All right. Move on here.
Work for hire. This works with older kids. They are now interested in money, and so they have their regular chores, and then they can be hired out. And I realized that if they see the money, then they're more inclined to be able to visually realize that the reward is within reach to them. So they can come here and they can just pick something that they want to do, and the money is already there. So once they've done it, they can leave it, and that way they are more.
Sure. And like anything else, some children this will work really well with, and others it won't. I have 2 children.
Yes.
My son would just jump at the idea of being able to earn extra money to buy the things that he wanted. He built bicycles the whole time he was, I don't know, 10 years old or so. And so he always wanted money to buy parts for bicycles. And so that was a great incentive to him. My daughter, on the other hand, she would say, well, I want such and such. And we would say, well, you've got these different jobs and chores, and you can earn your money. She would say, well, all right. And then it would never get done. But she didn't want that badly enough, I guess. I don't know, whatever it was. But so remember that, too, that may work for some children. It may not work for others. So we've listed down there other extra things that they could do. Might be that they might get another book or another story at bedtime, or they might get to spend more time outside. I'd rather not get into giving like prizes and things like that. We want to eventually have them do things because they know it's the right thing to do, part of the community. But I think here we're actually talking about jobs that are above and beyond their regular chores that they do because they're part of the family.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, homework. That's another good subject.
So homework is causes a lot of issues for us.
I think so too.
And that's why there's so much debate. So there are healthy things that are not. There's 5 main frustrations or 5 main issues that I find present themselves during the time to do homework.
Yeah.
The child can be very disorganized. And with the child that way, that is disorganized, they can't get out of their own way to get started with what they need to do. And so with that type of child, if you come up with a plan and sit down with them and say, okay, every day this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do, you're going to calm them down, and they're going to be able to sit down, and they're going to know exactly where they should start, where they finish, and they're going to have it all laid out. checklists for these kids that are disorganized. Just because then they don't have to worry about how they're supposed to be doing it. They can actually just do it. We have kids that like to procrastinate, as well as adults that like to procrastinate. It's best to break down assignments into small groups or smaller little increments. And I also say with these kids, time it. Usually, like if you say, okay, we're going to work on this for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, the buzzer goes up. They can get up. They can go do something for 5 minutes, and then they come right back. With procrastinating, they have to get over that first bout of anxiety of being able to sit down and actually do it. Once they get started, usually sure. So if they're on a roll, don't interrupt them. By no means. Let them go. Distraction. These sometimes we have fidgeters, daydreamers, and sometimes these are the kids that bouncing ball for because they will do their homework. They just can't read their hands or their feet. And sometimes they're basically I allow them to have a fidget because that helps them to focus. It helps them concentrate. Sometimes we look at it and playing with a fidget. In actuality, it's calming them down. So
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. I want to just let our audience know that we know we've gone over a little bit, but we did have that middle interruption there for a few minutes, and we have a few more minutes to go, and we'd love for you to stay for the whole thing. If you can't, remember this is being recorded, and it will be on the Montessori Family Alliance website in the Resource Center. So don't worry if you have to go. We're going to keep going and finish this up, and you can always go back and listen to the recording. Sorry, Anne-Marie.
Okay. The next one is frustration. This happens a lot. Kids are overwhelmed. They feel that the work is either too hard or they can't get started with them. If a child truly gets frustrated, just allow them to disengage. Allow them to take a break from it. A small break, and then they can go back. Or you can also be quite empathetic with them. They don't feel the need to solve it for them. Because they will get frustrated, but then they'll be able to calm themselves down. Then you have the rushing. You have the kids that realize if they put an answer down, even though it's an incorrect answer, they'll be outside 15 minutes sooner. These kids, you just say you're required to sit here for 15 minutes, or you're required to sit here for 20 minutes. If you get done in 2 minutes, okay, you're just going to have to continue to sit here. That way you will start to eliminate the rushing. And if you just say these are just the rules. This is just the way it is. You're not taking the blame yourself for making up those rules. If it's a rule that was planned ahead of time that you have to list allotted time each night, then it's just what it is. And they can't control.
And that would probably be something that you would want to discuss at like a family meeting and make a plan for homework time. I really encourage families to have a set homework time. Hopefully, if your child is in Montessori, they don't have 4 and 5 hours of homework. But you might have 15 to half an hour, and maybe not even every night. But every night, you might call it a study time. Because it might not be homework, but it might be a time where they can get out and read. And the other thing I find with that is it's very helpful if everybody in the family sort of has that time. So if you call it study time or reading time or whatever you want to name it, it can include homework, it can include reading a book or a magazine, and parents can do that as well. So that the children see that the parents are taking that time every night too. It's not just the children, and it's not just, it's a good habit to be in, and not to always be in front of some type of a screen as well, which we sometimes do as grown-ups. All right, let's go on to this next one.
After the school day, remember that everybody, adults including me, take charge, and they just need a break. And I say that kids really need to be able to come home and be able to find a niche or find some place for them to be able to sort of recover from the day, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what I've noticed is that kids do their best to pull it together throughout the school day.
Sure.
And they sit there, they listen, they do the best that they can. The minute they get into the car, they have a complete meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically they've been on overload, and all of a sudden they're in an environment that they feel comfortable enough to be able to let loose and then let loose. And my husband, I would always explain to my husband when you pick my daughter up from school, you really should talk to her for about the first 20 minutes on the drive home, because she's basically just recovering in the charge.
Sure.
And he would always ask her question after question after question, and she would get angry, and then by the time they got home, they both would be angry. And I said, just go talk to her for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Let her recover, let her,
have a quiet space.
Then she will talk to you.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when that started happening, it's much more peaceful.
Nice, nice.
So give them a break.
Absolutely.
This is crucial for me. It's my family command center.
You can name it something else.
Yes, you don't have to name it this. I think I am funny. I actually have, I have 4 calendars on the wall, and you can move them. I have each month. So I would have January, February, March, April. And I need to visually see what is coming 4 months out. So when somebody calls me, my mother-in-law says, can I come this weekend, I can go right to that board and I can look and see where we're going to be and what's going on. This is just a way of keeping everybody living. And if you have a big household, it's very hard to know where people are going to be at the same time. So these are something, if there's a place in the house that everybody can go to and look, then there can be no questions.
Right.
And I've also realized that you have to have a spot for paperwork coming in and paperwork going out, because that's something that causes, I think, a lot of stress for adults, especially is they are overwhelmed with paperwork. Sure. So if you have very concrete places and a system set up that's very concrete, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens, you're going to eliminate problems.
Absolutely.
Family meetings. This is actually, you taught me about family meetings.
I did.
This is one of the best things that we have ever implemented in our household.
Right. They are. They're an amazing communication tool is what I would call it for families. I love the first one. Family meetings really help everyone in the family, no matter what age they are, feel heard, acknowledged, and respected. And I think that's so important for communication. It creates a bond between all the family members, and it becomes stronger and stronger as we go through the years with the family meetings. Parents, you can teach your children that when they meet a challenge, they can just talk it out, and there will be people there who will listen and help them come up with solutions. And that's really important for them to know that that is a place where you can talk about things and get things solved. Family members will understand that when you live with others, things that they do or don't do affect everyone. And that's important. That's a real important piece of the family meeting, because the younger your children are, the more sort of self-centered they are and egocentric. And they don't recognize necessarily that what they're doing or not doing affects everybody else. And then when they get to be teenagers, guess what? It happens again.
Yes.
That they become rather self-centered, and the family meetings work for them as well. Family communication helps set up a successful week. If families are talking to each other, thinking ahead to what's coming up, I've got a test on Wednesday, or Dad's going out of town on Thursday. Mom's got some kind of special meeting or something coming up for her. Not only will they know what's happening, but they will know that maybe they can support each other in preparing for those things, and they will feel very valuable to the family and to each other, rather than disconnected.
Exactly.
So it really does set you up for a more successful week. And family meetings create opportunities for everyone to be together and to work as a team. And that's a great, great thing. So family meetings, start young and keep them going until your children leave home for either college or work or whatever they're going to be doing, because it really is an important key to family. And Anne-Marie?
And last but not least, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can.
Uh-huh.
And I express this because don't expect to have everything smoothly, checklists. Just implement something that works for your family, and there's that.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know how to do it, one of your friends more than likely will help you with that.
What I love about this session is Anne-Marie has given you lots and lots of ideas. And I like this ending that she's put in here, because I would suggest to you, start by doing one of the many things that Anne-Marie has shared with us today. And when that starts to work and everybody's settled with that, then add in another one. But don't try to do it all at once, because it will probably backfire. We thank you for coming in today. Anne-Marie, thank you for the great ideas. We love having you. We'll probably get you back another time, because we've got plenty more to talk about, I'm sure. Next week, Maren Schmidt will be coming back. She's going to do a session on the sixth sense. It's hard for me to say. It's pressure sensitivity. And we don't think about that too often, but there are children, and probably adults as well, who don't know how to regulate, or how it feels like if they hold your hand, they might hold your hand too tightly, because they don't quite have that regulation. So Maren's going to talk about that with you next week, and I'll probably have some great ideas for helping children to begin to regulate that sixth sense. And then in 2 weeks, I will be here, and I will be talking about this idea of anticipating, participating, and cooperating, how we communicate with our children, and how the way that we communicate with our children helps to either create cooperation or not. So join us for that. We want to thank everyone for joining in today and being with us, and we look forward to having you at another session.